Good evening and welcome to another edition of The Turning Point. Tonight we welcome you to one of our annual events called Black Women, Black Love. It really falls under our Black Love series. Last month we did Black Men, Black Love. It's a series that we have dedicated because we understand that our young people must see the value of their families. They must understand why their moms and their dads do what they do. But more importantly, the reason that we host this event is because we want to understand how the family is impacting what's happening in our communities. We hold the criminal justice system accountable. We hold the educational justice system accountable. Healthcare, the financial care system. We're talking about accountability. One of the systems that we don't hold accountable too often is the family. So the Black Love series is really about us holding us accountable. So tonight I have a series of amazing women with me who represent vast diversities, and we're going to dive into a real tough conversation about Black women, Black love, the mental health edition. Welcome, ladies.
Hey.
I like that. Y'all sound like a choir. So I'm going to mimic my partner Ishmael that gave rules at the beginning of the guide. So we have a couple of rules, right? The rules are very simple. One, we're respectful of everybody's mindset, of everybody's perspective, because we don't all have the same backstory. I'm gonna try to ask you guys for the cameras not to speak over each other. Y'all know how we get excited, but the camera doesn't serve well with the listener who will be listening, right? And then more importantly, we ask you to be your most genuine self. This conversation isn't just for us, but for our sisters, for our brothers that may be watching, and we always wanted to make sure that it is impactful and it's a great takeaway. Cool?
Cool. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna land with the first question. I'm gonna just throw them out there. As I told y'all in the prep, we don't have, this isn't a question, right? We're not doing question and answers. This is really a roundtable discussion around issues that we as women are not often talking about. So we're in the month of May. Oh, what month we in? It's March, y'all. Oh, Lord. We are in the month of March, and it is Women's History Month. So I am going to launch the event by asking, what does that mean to you? And I'm going to pair it with what a lot of people tend to say when they talk about Women's History Month, we pair it with empowerment. What does that mean, right? Women's History Month and empowerment, how real is it? But I ain't going to kind of direct your conversation, so I'm going to throw it out. Who want to go first?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I'm an educator. So we tend to, like for me, I can say for myself, kind of teach on, holidays or certain events that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I can say that Women's History Month is the time where we can reflect on the history of the women and accomplishments and things like that they have acquired over time. I know it should be something that we do all the time,
right?
But unfortunately, in the educational system, there's segments for certain things, like these things that happen. So, for me, I could say it's a time for us to reflect on, our strength and who we are.
Good. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Definitely to kind of carry on what you're saying is we're taught history, but a lot of about history, women are often removed from the story or their impact in history and the lives that we lead, lives that we live, societal, like how they've changed society is often minimized. Mm-hmm. So Women's History Month is a time to just celebrate. I agree completely. We need to be doing that every day because a lot of us, none of us will be here without a woman.
Right.
So we need to celebrate women every day. As for empowerment, a lot of times empowerment is often associated with this, like, I want to say this, I am woman, hear me roar.
Right.
And while I'm all for it, I do want to say empowerment to me is the grace that I offer myself.
Right.
And the space to be soft.
What do you mean by grace?
For me, my biggest critic is myself. My biggest critic is myself. My biggest critics are myself and society.
Right.
So often when I make a mistake or I fall short of the goals, or it might not even be a personal goal, but what society expects of me, I come down so hard. And it could be something that's like minor, but huge is right now body image.
Right.
Something as small as I missed a gym day today and I'm just in bed stressing like, oh my God, I'm not gonna look good. If I don't look good, I'm not gonna have this. But with that, empowerment to me is me saying, Val, let's go. Okay, girl, you got it. Give myself grace. Give myself that room to fall. Les Brown is one of my favorite speakers because he said one time that, you know, you're gonna fall.
Right.
And it's okay to fall, but make sure you land on your back so you can look up. It's something that I've often realized, and I'm sorry for carrying on.
No,
Is that every time that I've allowed myself to fall and not burden myself with that anger or just depression of not succeeding in the way I thought I'd succeed, something better happens. So that's grace for me.
Well
Or
said.
empowerment.
Well said.
I think that I see Women's History Month as progress.
Okay.
I think it's something that didn't exist before. I still feel like it's somebody else's version of validating who I am.
Ooh.
And so,
Yes.
I feel like I tend to not acknowledge it until it's brought to my attention, right? But I do feel like it's progress because it is something that didn't exist before, and it is an opportunity to acknowledge those who came before, who allow us to be able to even be sitting at this table now and having this conversation. So that's how I would see it.
Well
I would
said.
say, what is that?
Mm.
That's what I was gonna say. What is that?
What is what?
Women's History Month. Because for me, let's be real. When you do hear about it, it's not people of color.
Ooh.
We're gonna go there.
Ooh.
Let's go.
So
Ooh.
Accidentally.
Early. Like we right out the ballpark.
yeah, what is that? And I mean, it's almost reminiscent of Black History Month. Not
What is that?
seriously. All jokes aside, you know, bad enough the history was erased. You did everything. Okay, we're not gonna go into that. But I'm just saying, we're not gonna go there. We got time. It for me, when I think of Women's History Month, if I'm being completely honest, it's like, what is that? I mean, I think everybody should be acknowledged 365 days. And if we're gonna do it, we shouldn't marginalize it because it is marginalized heavily. You don't really see, again, you know, women who look like us from my perspective. So that's how I feel about
Women's History Month. Okay. We already know what we're gonna deal with tonight with you. Ladies. I got 2 more to go. Who going first?
Well, I think 2022, it should be all Black everything. So
period.
if February is
What a
Black
tea.
History Month and March is Women's History, is Black Women's History Month.
Okay, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
The world lost its mind in February and it felt like Black History Month got cut a little short.
Yes.
So we're extending it to now it's Black Women's History Month. And we're gonna celebrate all the Black girl magic that's been happening. So that's the way I look at it. It's so funny that we never take time out to acknowledge us as women. And I'm like, you know, I'm like what you said about don't even think about Women's History Month because it's never really been for us. It is now. We claiming all that. It's
We
just-
claiming it. That's it. That's it. Black Women's History Month.
We have to celebrate
Okay.
us. We can't look for anybody else to do it for us. Nobody's gonna come and save us. We have to do it ourselves,
Exactly.
and that's a part of that. So
the epicenter
all
of
Black
life.
everything.
The epicenter of life. Indeed.
That's it.
I love it. Come on now.
So, let me bring some sociology in.
All right,
And-
JoJo.
All right, JoJo.
So women are the bottom of our social ladder. Black women are the very bottom
Very
of
bottom.
the social ladder. When we look at Women's Month, what are we focusing on about the women? So we're looking at women's history, we're looking at where we are now, how we got from there to here. But there are still many, many problems that are systemic in our society that are gendered, right? Poverty, the feminization of poverty, right? The feminization of mental health, the lack of feminine representation in physical health, right? We didn't exist in the Greek medical books. We didn't exist in the first set
Come on.
of medical journals, right? Our bodies weren't taught about in med school, right? Because we had a uterus and it became complicated because we had additional levels of hormones and we're supposed to just bear children. So then we are deemed through societal descriptions as the reproductive source only as such. We're not supposed to be CEOs, CFOs, doctors, lawyers, whomever. We're not supposed to be. And then as Black women, we are, again, like I said, the bottom of the ladder, we have to work 4, 5, 6, 7 times harder just for our name to be recognized in a setting. We have to look at life, and we have to translate everything through various lenses, right? I have to now get up, if I'm going into this setting to go to this boardroom meeting, I have to remember I need to style my hair in a particular manner. I need to dress in a particular manner. I may need to take out one of my piercings, right? I mean, I have to operate through these lenses so that I am even accepted as a valid voice in 2022. It's still happening, right?
I would say even considered
Yes,
as a valid
considered as a
voice.
valid voice. So for me, when we talk about Women's Month, let's talk about us still being getting 80 cents of every dollar, right? Let's talk about us being relegated as second-class citizens in many situations still. Let's talk about access to power. We don't have it. Let's talk about the single mothers that are the 50% of the working class and lower class members of our social economic system in the US. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And then empowerment, right? Empowerment is giving me the access, empowering me by giving me the access to the tools, allowing me to traverse certain areas to learn and develop the skill sets that I need to move forward. Don't limit me. Don't tell me what I can and cannot do. Give me full access. That's empowering me. Because then I can choose.
And
Yeah,
we need equity.
Equity.
Just did that course this morning. Yep.
And equity. So that's what Women's Month means to me, and women's empowerment is allowing me. Give me a hammer and tool, I can build a house faster than you can.
And that's what the problem is. We're threats.
Exactly.
You better speak on it.
Let me
That's
do
it.
it. Let me show. But we don't have that ability in the Western world. Right? In African societies or the sister societies, women are in their matriarchal societies. Women have positions of power. Women are able to lead. Women are able to do. But I'm gonna just stop.
Ooh, you gave me a lot. Y'all gave me a lot. So there was something that you said that really caught my attention, and you added to it, just so that your voice can be considered. That's an important comment, right? Because a lot of time so Mary J. Blige, Good Morning Gorgeous. And if you really take the time to listen to the song, she's talking about being gorgeous after she's realized all this other stuff, right? It's not about the beauty, it's not about the makeup, it's not about the hurt. Good Morning Gorgeous is taking me for who I am, as I am, fresh out of bed, and I'm still gorgeous, right? So I'm gonna take that one step further and ask you guys, that voice, right? When we talk about Women's History Month and we talk about the role that women have, whether it's in the Western, through the Western lens that we're talking, where is our voice, right? Because I know all of us at some point have looked and watched what Judge Ketanji Brown has gone through. One of the most
Period.
prepared, qualified woman to sit on the bench.
And the hell that they're putting.
And the hell that she has gone through, right? Her voice, everything she has done is being viewed through the lens of people who don't understand her, who don't value her, who don't think that she should be there, who don't think that she should even have a voice, because who are you to sit on my Supreme Court? So I throw that out there to you guys and say, when and where does our voice begin to actually matter? I heard all the deep breaths because everybody wanted to jump in.
I feel as if, and then we're gonna get specific, Black women.
Okay.
Our voice does not matter until it's beneficial to another party.
Oh.
When it comes to something that forwards or betters our personal lives or ourselves, what you need a voice for. But when it's time to advocate,
Yes.
oh, we're the Black women. When it's time to raise, we're the Black women. When it's time for everybody else, that's when we have a voice. But that voice, even within that there's boundaries within that. It's control.
Yeah.
That voice, we cannot use that moment. Let's say who is speaking up? Stop killing Black men.
Mm-hmm.
It's Black women.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When something happens to any other culture out there, any other race, who is usually fighting first?
Right.
Black women. But we dare not say in that same breath of stop killing our men, stop killing our women. Look at social media. We've seen violence against Black women has been skyrocketing. Skyrocketing.
And who's committing the violence?
We want to take it there.
Y'all ready for that
I'm
conversation?
ready for that part of the conversation. But the same people that are perpetrating these crimes against Black women, when we say stop killing us, they're like, what does she do wrong? It sounds very
Yes.
familiar to what a certain race
You
does
should
to
just
us.
comply.
Right.
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 Oh, he just wanted your number. You could have been nicer.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it almost kind of sounds like, oh, you
didn't have to wear a hoodie.
You didn't have to wear a hoodie.
Right.
Mhm.
You should have known better.
But let it be, you don't have to wear a hoodie. Black women are out there. We're in the front line.
Yes.
But we can't use our voices for us. So
Or you
that's
can't depend on that same support that we give out.
we don't have support.
Exactly.
And then if we go take it a step further, I actually just had this discussion the other day, and I promise I'm sorry for commandeering the
No,
you're good. But it was a cisgender Black man. He was like, y'all go through a lot. I said, we do. We go through a lot. And then he was like, yeah, you know, men, especially podcast men. So all my podcast men out there, put up the podcast stuff and go drive a truck. We need truckers.
Wow. Wait, so we don't want the men part? I'm not going to stop y'all. I'm going to leave y'all alone. I'm going to leave y'all alone.
It's something that we took the conversation a step further, but we were talking about that Black women are also hard on Black women.
Yes.
So we get it
I was
from
coming there. Yes, honey.
so we don't get voices. And as we started discussing here, a lot of us didn't have voices growing up.
Yes.
And if we did have voices, we were made to feel like it's wrong. So when it comes to Black women and our voices, we are only to whisper if it's for us. But for everybody else, we're supposed to be loud. So that's just
I gotta jump in on that.
Go ahead.
Jump in on that because the whole time I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about conversations that I've had with other Black men,
Mhm.
and I've honestly found that
Hold on,
either
wait,
they've been.
Wait. Notice each of us that are having these conversations, we're saying that we're having these conversations with Black men. So these conversations we're not having with one another. Is it either because, and I'm just asking as you continue, why is it that it's so much easier for us to have these conversations? Because I have the same conversations with Black men. I can count on my finger how many Black women that I'm sitting there having these conversations with that will agree. So it's either we don't have them, we're fearful of having them, or we just don't, again, we're tough on each other. So I can't show you that I'm hurting too.
Right.
So go ahead.
On that note, I really just feel like there is a general distrust, right,
Ooh.
in what that means. and
General
what that looks
distrust
like. Of one another.
Yeah.
Black women?
Correct.
Ooh,
Correct.
wow.
And I'm not saying that.
I was just
Wow, it is a competitive spirit. Go ahead.
I'm coming.
Ooh.
I'm coming.
Ooh, go ahead.
I have don't make me laugh, guys. I have found that they have been conditioned to not hear our voices as well. One of the conversations I tend to have lately now, more with my husband, is why does it take me crying, right, before you realize what I was saying? And again, I've spent a whole lifetime kind of creating a persona that stays rational, that stays calm, that can use my words to express my needs, my wants, my hurts, right? I've spent a whole lifetime doing this. And so now in a relationship where I can very, well, for lack of a better term, rationally, right? Express myself, I'm not heard, right? It's like it doesn't register, and I think that is saying something for those who love you and those who care about you and those who want what's best for you, that it doesn't even register.
So
right?
it's not registering at home.
Correct.
It's certainly not.
Correct.
It ain't registering outside.
Right, right. And so when we're talking about when do we have a voice, I think this could be radical of me, but I feel like we have a voice when we use it. The idea of letting me, allowing me, you know,
Come on.
like all of that for me is definitely part of my past. I don't care what it costs at this point. What it is that I have to say will be said. I will make sure I use everything at my disposal to make sure it's said as loudly, as clearly, right? And as broadly as it can be said. But again, no one ever gave anybody permission who can do something now. Because if you're waiting for permission, the
ain't
same
coming.
way, right?
We sit it together, it ain't coming. Well said, well said. Yeah.
You're gonna ask for forgiveness.
Come on.
Can I just give you
Come
a high five right now?
Come on. Who wants to add to that? I think that's a valid point. And I think we're living in an age where women are just like, I'm sick of it.
Yep.
I'm done waiting because it ain't coming.
Right.
I'm done asking because you're not going to give it to me anyway.
Right.
Right? And first of all, nobody else has to ask. So why do I need to ask? Right? And I think those are the areas and the spaces that we're in. So I'm gonna push this conversation a little bit further before I throw this to Mo. Do we find that oftentimes it is our own Black women who stifle our voices?
Ooh. So there's a couple of factors in that. Some Black women are jealous of other Black women in the power, access, success, all the things, and especially Black women who show up as their authentic selves. They don't have to
Yes.
something else to get the respect, to get the access, to get the power. You know, so there's
I didn't even know I was coming to church.
listen. I've even seen Black mothers jealous of their Black daughters because of the level of freedom that those daughters have.
Right.
Also, the level of relationship that those daughters may have with the men, the father, so there's this generational separation a little bit sometimes because you're seeing a freer generation, and some
Right.
people are trying to restrain it, or some people are trying to say, hey, trying to coach you through what could be coming, and you're like, no, we ain't trying to hear none of that.
We're
It's
not
late
gonna
for
be
that. We're
coached.
not, it's over. Thank you for laying the bed work, but
We got it.
we gonna rock with it. So like you see it in so many different factors. So Black women can be so critical of one another, and also I think that's a part of the expectation. So when you see genuine Black women show up for other Black women, that's foreign.
Yeah.
That's weird. That looks different as opposed to the competition, as opposed to, but the spaces are out there. It's possible to create it, but you have to show up in that.
Right.
And that's a self-check that a lot of women aren't willing to have because I don't want to see you shine because that's taken away from my shine. No, it's not. It's enough shine for all of us.
Right. Right.
But when you feel like there isn't, like you operate from this place of scarcity and of lack, then that's how you do that.
You operate from a place of survival.
But the things that we had to do to survive, we don't have to do those things anymore. We are in a different place now. We are in a space of thriving. We are in a space of growth. We are in a space of building. The things that our ancestors had to do, that our mothers had to do, that our grandmothers had to do, we may have to hold on to some of those things, but we don't have to hold on to everything.
But we're a threat though.
But
we're a threat.
and we should be.
And so I say that
You should
because
be threatened by us.
as I'm
because
hearing,
we're good.
no,
For real.
but as I'm
Say
hearing
that.
the Black woman, it's just not the Black woman. It's every other.
Listen,
Then because
these
that's
Black
what I deal
girls
with
is
on a
coming.
daily.
These Black girls is coming for everything.
Yeah.
And everybody is
And
watching.
I'm
And
leaving
you
the
better
door
be
open
scared.
behind
You better be. Listen,
You better be scared.
because I'm
But
gonna show up as
however,
the smartest one in the room every time.
Come on.
And I know it, and I'm okay with it. I'm not gonna shrink or diminish or demur.
I hear you. I hear you, but I'm not there.
I know. Listen, I said this at the last conference. I was raised by a free Black girl. My mom was raised by a free Black girl. I'm raising a free. I don't have all them constraints.
I hear you.
I don't get it.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, so your point.
I hear you. But when you work with corporate white America, they have a way of making you feel, even though you're not little. Really, I've had many talks. Oh, you're not. Well, go ahead and edit this part out.
The minutes.
You're not friendly enough, or you're standoffish, or you know, your hair is, you know.
No.
Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. If we're
If we're gonna be
having a
honest,
candid conversation.
yes.
And so in turn, I have learned to fine tune myself. Like even as I'm talking to y'all, I didn't process like 5 times how I'm gonna say it.
And it's true though. That is so true.
Code switching.
But I'm inviting
No,
you.
but it doesn't matter. Like well, this might be the therapist, right? So for me, I'm always intentional. I try to be intentional with every single thing I say. I try not to speak out of anger because you might get a side that you ain't ready for. I'm not ready for it either. So it's a filter. It's a natural filter. It's with everybody.
And
It's
we
with
all
my
have
kids.
Yeah, that's what we talk about. The lens that you have to
Right.
You naturally do it.
Yeah.
You naturally do it. So like I agree, strong black woman in the room, I have a presence about myself that I'm fully aware of, but do I use it in all settings?
But it goes back to what
Don't.
Val said, right? When you provide value
Mm-hmm.
to other people. So I've been in that room. I've been in that corporate space. I've been the only little chocolate girl up in that
I have been too.
Right?
Yes,
So that's most of us.
yes.
But you know what? When you want the right answers, you knew to come to me.
Yeah.
When you wanted whatever you needed,
Well,
you knew
yeah.
to come to me because that was how. But that was. But that's how that's how you position yourself. You
Right. Facts.
be the best
That's right.
at it, and
Ooh, they fighting to get it out.
and you let them know with that. You don't have to be like I'm the best. I'm gonna beat you over the head with it. You just show up competent.
Wait,
I
before I
have a
let y'all go, I gotta get Lorraine in. Cause y'all, I gotta get Lorraine in. Go ahead, Lorraine. Lorraine, give me some. Come on, Lorraine. Cause otherwise.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on what you said earlier when you're talking about the Black voice, and that's just you just using it. That's when you know that you have just use it. And you also said something about this generation being like the freer us back
Right.
then, whatever. And I'm taking both these things, and I'm like, it's true because when I was growing up, I was told to be quiet.
Yes. You're to be seen
and
not
not
heard.
Speak when spoken to.
Right.
Yes.
And that me growing up with that same mindset kind of put me like in this shell,
Mhm.
right? And now I have my daughter, which is in this generation, and she is like
She ain't having it. She's like, she's at a shell. I don't know what that is.
But then I had to go back and think, okay, why am I telling her to, not
Down
voice
herself.
herself?
Right.
Oh,
So then taking these aspects, I'm like, okay, I just need to let her go.
Listen, yes.
And then I see that, okay, and what I tell myself is, oh, that's her dad's side. That's her dad's side. But yeah, so that's what I'm like trying to do, take in and accept, like, they have to use their voice. They have to be free to use it and not like shelter them.
And I think
I know,
that's
I
such a
agree.
unique Black mom struggle,
Right.
especially with our girls, is to not put those restraints
Yes.
on them that we had because we want them to be freer.
Yes.
We want them to talk to us, and old folks they talk back to us.
Right,
Like
right,
we want
right.
to know, we
To
want to know how you
express, yeah,
feel.
yes,
We want
correct.
to
And we allow that in the house.
because that ability to advocate for themselves.
Yes. That's
is a skill.
important. Yes.
That is a
Absolutely.
skill that
It is.
we've had turned off
Right.
for us and for our mothers that
Facts.
we don't want to turn off in our
Yes.
daughters.
Val, and then I'm coming to you.
Okay.
No,
And then JoJo, I'm coming because you done been too quiet, so that means you building up.
No.
And answer for me. Go ahead.
I actually have a question because what I'm receiving is just absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
So for myself, because something that you stood out with is like when somebody needs something, they come to you. They know you have the knowledge. They know you have what they need. So you've learned to place that value, that
Ooh.
you like that value on it.
That.
So
I'm
you're
gonna
not
give you
coming
what
to
you
me
want
for
every
free.
time.
Right, right.
You're not coming to me for free, whether it be
Oh,
monetary
you
or respect or the coins. You're
Listen.
not coming to me for free. For someone like me who I don't want to say I don't have a voice. I do have a voice. If anybody will tell you, I'm very vocal
We
and I'm a
know.
crier. So, but the thing is, sometimes I find myself, and I don't know if anybody else could relate, I don't know if this is the right word, but sometimes I find myself feeling guilty. Like it's
For.
almost as if like there's like to where sometimes it kind of debilitates me. Am I using that?
Yeah.
But let's say I know I got it. Can we cut this part out?
Oh Lord.
Let me try. No, okay, let's say that I know I know what I know.
Right.
I just know what I know. And then I try to share that knowledge. Sometimes I almost feel guilty because it's like, I don't know if it's, I can't find the words to properly like illustrate what I'm saying, but it's just like, there's times where I'll commit, like, I have to literally walk in and be like, Val, just say it, just say it, just say it. And then when I do say it, it's almost like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have did that.
I shouldn't have did that.
Yeah.
Or even when I do, like, when I speak up, because you close mouths don't get fed.
Right.
And it's just like, I do get what it is that I was looking for. Sometimes I it's like almost like weaponized to, oh, she gonna say
But
something.
wait, is that something? Don't ask me. Mental health. Don't look at me like that. Is that something you think is placed on you that's weaponized against you, or are you weaponizing it against yourself?
I think I weaponize it against myself. Like,
okay.
so I just want, the question is like, how to kind of detach that.
Oh, I got the
Because-
psychology and the mental health. They ready to go,
No,
boy. The
okay.
sociology people, they ready to go.
I feel as if, and
Let it out, girl.
God,
Let
like
that
God,
out.
the universe, whatever it is that anybody at this table believes in, I feel as if this isn't where my landing ground is.
Okay, I'm
And
glad you said that, because that was gonna be the, you need to leave.
But I think a major component is just guilt and fear of saying what it is I want.
Do you think you deserve it?
Ooh, that's a question. Say that again.
Do you deserve it? Do you think you deserve all the good things that the universe has
It's
in
gonna
store?
bring to you.
Y'all trying to make me cry early.
Yes.
But it's a valid question.
Right, because I think Black women struggle with
Yes.
We struggle with
Yeah.
thinking that we deserve the good
Correct.
things because everything around us tells us that we don't.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us that we're too dark. They tell us that we're too fat. They tell
Our
us
hair
that
too
we're
coarse.
loud. They tell us that our hair is too nappy. They tell us that we, you think you know everything. You
Yep.
Yeah.
everything to the detriment till we internalize that into
Yes.
thinking that we don't deserve good things. So we tolerate foolishness.
You better preach
But when you resolve yourself to know that the universe would not give you what you have for nothing,
That's right.
you were given those smarts. You were given that those words. You were given all of those things for a reason.
Listen, this conversation.
Like she said, like Yolanda said, intention, right?
Yes.
The universe is intentional.
Yes, it is.
You have all of the things that you need. Everything
Claim it.
that you
Move
need.
into where you
have
need to
my
do
own
purpose.
Claim it.
You got me crazy that song? Because I got it happening over here.
Because the other, like, I don't care, girl, woman, whoever you are, I have no issue saying, baby, you gonna get it. There's not, let me not speak out, I don't know, but hopefully no one, if you were to ask, would be able to say that I don't encourage. Because as you said, I'm walking through a door, every door that I walk through,
Someone open it.
even if it's someone open it, someone help me open it.
Somebody else.
And even if they don't want that door open, baby, I'm putting a pebble so that it
So
don't
you-
close fully behind
Yes.
you coming through too. But it's just so hard, like it to the point where I feel stuck sometimes.
Wait, hold on.
No,
Come
go
back.
ahead. I
Wait,
just wanted to.
JoJo.
So back to the beginning, and then I'm gonna come back to you.
You need a notepad so you take notes?
So,
Go ahead.
So we were talking about women's voices, our place and who we are and why we're smothered and why we're not accepted and so forth. So let's go back to history for a little bit. Let's go back to when we were brought to this country, our ancestors were brought to this country. When they needed their babies taken care of, they came to us, we were the experts.
Talk about
When
it.
they needed the food to be cooked, they really came to us because we had all the wonderful recipes.
They wanted them breastfed.
When they needed the babies to be breastfed because they were too vain to
Yeah,
use
they
their
were
breasts. They didn't want
right.
their breasts to sag, so they used ours, and they figured that our milk was special because we were able to be resilient in the heat, and they beat us, right? And we still were resilient. So there must be something in that milk, right? Let me get it for my baby. They did our clothing. They knew how to farm certain things. They brought crops that we've never even heard of, right? And they knew they had the expertise because they understand the seasons and how to use the land. And who was the one in charge? Who was the one running these things? The women. Because we came from Mother Africa, where women were the leaders within these realms. So that social notion of women being the matriarchy came with us. They saw that in our groups,
Mhm.
and they realized that the women are the powerful ones.
Mhm.
We need to subdue them.
Mm.
Um,
Say that again.
yes, to subdue them because
Mm.
women are the power ones.
Okay.
So then we have the men, and they're doing most of the hard work. And do you know the story about the MFR? Okay, we can look for it.
I was about to say, you don't do that now. No, she said you ought to go look for it.
So the MFR story is that word comes from the fact that they made the slave owners, they made young men rape their mothers, right?
Oh, oh,
Right.
okay. The word.
So-
Okay.
So that was dehumanizing because you bore this child.
They can't hear the camera.
Sorry.
Can't hear you.
You bore this child. Sorry. It's dehumanizing because you bore this child.
Oh my
You nurtured this child, you brought them into the world, and you're trying to protect them, and now this child is being forced to dehumanize you. That's what they did to
Oh my
us.
God.
And then we had to turn around and tell our child, I forgive you. I still love you. I forgive you and I still love you. And it's okay because you were forced to do that. I know you didn't want to do that. So we have always had to uplift our beaten down black men. We didn't have time to mourn or ourselves being raped by our own children, right? We had to turn around and I'm like, I can't have you be less than who I want you to be. You are a king, and I need to build you back up while I'm hurting. I'm crying, but I have to help you strengthen you. So we as Black women have always been the ones to nurture, to heal, to uplift, to support our Black men.
Right.
So when we come to them and we expect them to support us, they're looking at us crazy because we never had to. They weren't taught that. That's not part of their socialization. And society has them thinking that I'm at a place where I can operate on my own and I don't need you. But then society doesn't care about you. So who is it that they have to come back and fall on? Us. So yes, as a Black woman, we have all these burdens and all these responsibilities. But again, they know our power. So they silence us. They realize that, okay, we become empowered and we're educated now because we have access to education, right? We're in the workforce. We're moving. We just passed the Crown Act. How long has it been running to
Come on now.
pass, right?
That my
This is
hair.
my third set of locks. This is my third set. The first set I had, I couldn't get a job. I could not get a job. I sounded uber Anglo on the phone. Hi, yes, this is Jonette. And I'm interested in a job, and this is in the mid-90s, and you just fax over your resume, you speak to them on the phone, and they bring you in for an interview, and they're like, oh, can I help you? Yes, I'm here for the interview. No, you can't be here for the interview, right? And this is right here in South Florida, 95, 96. And so we have to, like you mentioned, change our appearance, walk that walk, talk that talk. Right? Get all the credentials you want to, they're still gonna be a style like Ketanji, right?
Yep.
So, the notion of, okay, stop trying to find a place at the table, create your own table. We have to do that. And we can't do that if we're competing as Black women.
Right.
And the reason we're competing is because the notion is that we're supposed to be this strong woman. So you're afraid to show your vulnerability. So I'm gonna pretend, yeah, I'm good, I'm straight, I'm good.
Sounds
All is fine. Oh yeah, yes. Facebook, all the beautiful pictures.
All the beautiful pictures on Facebook, yeah.
Hubby and I are just cuddling up. Back time we're home, we're arguing on the other side of the house, right? We create this false life versus understanding the importance of authenticity. We cannot heal if there's no authenticity. How do I know you're sick if you're pretending to be well? I can't prescribe the right medicine if you're not telling me you're sick, right? But we prefer to put on a facade because we've had to, but we think it's needed. That's like, I'll go into that later, but yeah, we keep living we're stuck in the past.
No, we don't want to come back.
We're stuck in the past. We're stuck in the past. We haven't realized that although the systems are in the past, although society's operations are still stuck in past things, we have moved way fast. From the 90s to now, we're way fast as far as internet and technology and everything else. Why are we still operating in the slave mindset?
Oh.
You better
Oh.
say that.
Go ahead, because you done had your come to Jesus moment over here. You done
did.
praise dance, you done cried. Talk to me.
So first,
Mm-hmm. And she took notes. Y'all.
I had to, because there was just some nuggets I could not let pass. And so first, thank you for all of y'all just pouring into us. Because I do feel like it's always overdue. Just in general, it's always overdue. I don't care if we have this again next week. It's just overdue. So that's first and foremost. I felt the need while I was listening to you speak. It's gonna sound strange, but I wanted to shout out to my mom actually. And my shout out to my mom was simply because my mother was a lot of ways old school Haitian, but there was one thing for some reason my mother was extremely like pushing this idea of say how you feel. She might backslap you if she didn't like what you said.
But
My
say
sister
it.
was she was still like, say how you feel. And I had a stepfather who was that, don't ask me questions. I told you what it is. And my mother would kind of come up behind him and just like, well, you know, she may need to know the answer, right? And so that's the only reason why she said. So shout out to my mom. I just wanted to put that out there. Secondly was and that went to what you were saying before. There's a text that says, His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Him. That's one. That's a personal favorite. Two, there's another one that says, do not let anyone look down upon you. It says, because you are young. I say, because I'm a woman. But set an example for others, right? And it goes on to the rest of the text. So that is centered around my faith. And I believe that has a lot to do with what I've been able to both face and overcome, because I dealt with those white folks too. And I dealt with old white folks. And I still deal with some old white folks, now that I'm thinking about it, who think that they're doing me a favor by letting me speak. Like they go out of their way to make sure that everybody else in the room knows that they advocated for me because they wanted to make sure my voice was heard at the table. So I just want to say, I'm very familiar with that, while at the same time saying again, why do you have to be so angry? Why is it that you have to take things so personal after you just put me down in front of my entire class? Like I've had all of that. What I've realized is, looking back, those were opportunities to learn, because I have to tell you, I learned the power of an email through a white person.
Come on.
Power of an email.
Yes, friend.
Right. I may not necessarily agree with you, and I may have my own way of doing things, but I believe in collecting as many tools as possible in order to get to where I'm trying to go. So I say that to say, again, that idea of being in that white space is definitely going to feel restrictive until it doesn't. Because the truth is, she got fired before me. Because I was necessary and you weren't.
There you go.
And I feel like
Say that again. Say that again.
I was necessary and you weren't.
Yes.
Correct. Because when they needed that certification, I'm the one who had it and you didn't.
Come
They
on.
needed those things on paper, I'm the one who had it, not you. And I always say that when I'm leaving on my own terms. You're not sending me anywhere, right? And I make sure I continuously position myself to be able to say that, be that, and do that. Because at the end of the day, again, no one else is giving it to you.
That's right.
Come on.
Right? And so I feel like that's
Word.
extremely important. And so when we're talking about feeling guilty, I think it's because, for me, what I'm hearing you say is that you've learned the power and the importance of empowering and pushing and encouraging others,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But again, number one, you more than deserve it.
Exactly.
Because again, I feel like we have been the bottom of the barrel for far too long. And I even feel guilty about saying we, because I know I enjoy pleasures that my mother did not, and that my grandmother did not, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
yet and still, I know what it feels like to really feel like crap, simply because the color of my skin was wrong, because my hair texture was wrong. Anyway, again, I don't want to go too far into that. Because, you know, we talked about going to Florida State. I mean, we had some crazy questions. I had some like, girl, I know you black, but your head texture is different from your head texture, and I just want to know why.
Or can I touch your hair?
Do you do them every morning? Yeah, I get that question. Every elevator I walk in with one of them. Do you do them every morning? Can I touch them? And it's like, are we for real?
Or is that a weed?
Is that a weed?
Can you loose them out? So long. You can loose them out. I like when your hair was
I love it when they have opinions.
But we do it too
Listen,
now.
walk right up to them and pet them too. And say, oh, this is nice. This is oily.
I'm not playing with y'all. All right, I'm not playing with y'all. Okay. I can't with y'all. Listen.
Oh my.
So in this same vein of conversation, whether we deserve something, whether we should have it, how we show up, needing to recreate ourselves for different spaces, right? What is the impact that we think all of that has on our mental health? Because imagine you wake up one morning and you got 4 different spaces. I'm walking in.
Navigate.
You are becoming 4 different people, and then at the end of the day, you got to go back to being the real you.
Yeah, exactly.
It is
Exhausting.
Thank you. It's exhausting mentally, it's exhausting physically, but more importantly, I think it's exhausting emotionally. And we don't address that part, right? So I really want to challenge us to really think about, and I'll start with you, in this
I
space,
know it was coming.
in your space, feeling like I have to be a particular way because I need to navigate whatever America, white America, Jewish America, Muslim America,
Talk about America.
America, right? How exhausting, and I know you're gonna give me a mental health answer, you're going to cushion it in mental health. I just want Yolanda's answer.
Well, I'm gonna give you. Well, I'm in a stage now of happiness over everything.
Okay.
In all vicinities, kids. I love the kids, but happiness over everything. If you disturb my peace, got to go. Or you're gonna be over there. I'm gonna love you from a distance. Hey girl, what you gonna say over there? I think you're right. It's emotionally exhausting. Waking up every day tired. Tired of being tired. Listen, at some point, and it's funny because God has a funny way of giving you reminders. Just this week, how you doing? I know you're talking about the kids, but how you doing? I have 5 different people ask me that, but how you doing? And each time you try to put on that face of that facade, oh girl,
But how you doing?
No, I didn't ask about that. How you doing? It made me realize, okay, are we okay? Because I think over time you mask it. You don't even know that you're not doing all right.
Yeah.
You don't even know that you're not all
That's
right.
very true.
And so when you take that time, I would say, self-actualization, to kind of look inside and say, okay, this ain't working. What we gonna do? Happiness over everything is where I'm at.
So let me ask you this, and I'm gonna throw this one out to Mornica. We like to say, right, Lorraine? How you doing? Like for real, for real. Are we there for the answer?
Yeah.
Right? Because I can ask you,
Yeah.
JoJo, how you doing? But by the time JoJo starts to open her mouth, you taking off because you ready to go.
Yeah.
So my question is, as Black women, do we really care about each other's mental health? Right? Do we genuinely
I do.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because she'll harass you
I'm gonna
enough,
ask you
so she gonna keep digging.
Exactly.
No, but on a greater scale, it's just like you pass someone on the road and you say, "Hey, how are you?" By the time that person, you didn't because you didn't really care about the answer.
Right.
So I'm asking, in the same vein of us saying that we're competitive, right? But we're trying to balance being competitive and being empathetic, right? Because you want that Black girl magic, you know. But realistically, if we're going to talk about self-actualization and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to one another, do we really value how the other person is doing? And if we don't, why not?
I think for Black women, especially here in America, and going back to what Jay said about matriarchal societies, right? So our instincts are matriarchal, but we live in a patriarchal society.
Right.
So we are constantly, especially for us, we are in a constant struggle to exist inside of a system that is not natural for us.
Correct.
So that shows up in very strange ways. So we may have tight relationships with like 1 or 2 people where we genuinely care and we'll stop the clock if
Right, that
if
person
we get a
calls.
spidey sense and some stuff,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I get
whatever.
those.
But we live in a society that continues to tell us to not care about anybody else but yourself because
Right.
you got to get ahead, and if somebody else is standing in your way, you got to step on their neck, and you know. So and we as the warriors and overachievers and superwomen that Black women are, we gonna take it to the next level. You know, like we're not gonna do nothing in no half measure. Like if I gotta step on next, I'm stepping on all of this. You know, like that's just how
Exactly.
that's how we operate. know more
okay,
that
though?
we
You all right down there?
I'm like, you all right?
I gotta keep going.
I say got a bag for you, but I gotta, call 911 a little
You
bit
good down there?
But that's how we
That's true though.
but that's how we are, and it's like it's tough for us to, especially outside of that very defined group, it's tough for us to show that vulnerability.
That's the word I
to
wanted to hear.
show that
Mhm.
everything is not picture perfect, fitting on the gram in a 1x1 ratio square photo, or
Right.
on a reel now, or on a TikTok or whatever. Like being vulnerable enough to say, "Nah, sis, I'm not alright right now."
But
But
that's
we-
but that
But
and I'm
we-
gonna go
but
over
no,
to Joe
we-
and then
We
to-
even have
and then-
difficulty with it with our
I
spouses.
can't say your name this morning.
So it's not just outside relationships outside of our house. We have that difficulty
Inside, come on.
Mhm.
because before we step out the front door, we done already had to be 3 different people.
Right.
We done had to be wife, we done had to be mama, we done had to be
Yes.
dog keeper, we done had to be sister, we done had to like we gotta be everything but us. Because there's no room, there's no time for us. We have time. We only have time for the other people, the other things. I didn't come to that realization until I left working for other people. Right? Every morning, small kids, rushing them, get out of bed, make sure that they fed, make sure that the bags are packed, make sure that they have everything they need, make sure the uniform is ironed, make sure that all this stuff. Husband, make sure he got what he need, make sure all this. I got enough time to shower, brush my teeth, slap on some polyester because it don't wrinkle, and keep it. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to center myself. I don't have time to give honor to the ancestors. I don't have time to do none of that. You know, you don't, because when I stopped working for other people and I had to wake up one morning and didn't have to get myself dressed before having to get my kids dressed, I was like, wait a minute.
Hold up now.
I spend a lot of time on other people. And I had to check in with me, like, girl, well, what do you even like? What are your hobbies? You ain't got no hobbies.
Exactly.
No. But they ain't here, but go ahead.
But it's like, who am I?
Right.
Outside of these other people.
Right.
Outside of the value that I bring.
That's such a great point.
Do we even have time to even have that self-actualization conversation with ourselves? We don't even know. We're worker, we're supervisor, we're boss, we're mommy.
We're titles.
Yes,
we're
we're
titles.
titles. Responsibility.
Yeah, but who are we
But who
as
are we?
people? So I'm here for this new, like, my favorite thing in the world is Black Girl Luxury TikTok. Listen, someone said my ancestors' wildest dreams was to rest.
To rest.
To rest.
Wow.
Do we even have that internal conversation with ourselves to say, sit still? And don't feel guilty about it.
But I think for those who are believers, right? Those who are believers in the word, it is in the good book.
Okay.
It is
Clear. I mean, that is one of the, it just says, be still and know that I am God. I mean, it is as clear as it comes.
And I have a
Listen, on the
testimony.
7th day he rested.
Come on now.
God got to rest. Don't you think you got to rest?
You gotta rest. That's a message for me.
Exactly.
That sounds familiar.
That sounds familiar.
Set you down and make you still.
Come on now.
That's a whole
and that's what
nother.
happened to me. So I had to realize. I mean, it's not the first time it happened. So it's like, child, would you listen?
Yes.
But God would do that. He would set you down.
See where
He would
all the way down.
cause you to be medically down,
Okay.
and you have to, sit and rethink and realize life. And back to what you're saying, where are you? What is your place? And mine is protecting my peace. Like I have to protect my peace, regardless of the situation. I'm going to block your number. Sorry, mom, dad, aunt, whomever. Sorry, I'm blocking your number. No, we're not going to have this conversation until I feel like we can, return because, as West Indians, we tend to get in a situation when it's an older individual, you resist what they're saying, and then they get mad and stop talking to you, and then they come back and start talking to you days later like nothing ever happened.
nothing ever happened.
Right? Unresolved conversation. So no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. And then the notion of the meditating. I was just talking to my son yesterday, reminding him of the importance of meditate. The Bible talks about meditating about 23 times. And people who are in the faith are like, no, meditating is not of God. It is of God. He talks about it about 23 times in the Bible. And he tells us that it's important for us to center ourselves before starting our day. And he's the forefront of that centering process. But we don't realize that, right? We kind of skip over that in the good book, and we find the ones that say, giving it shall be given back unto you, press down, shake it together. All the ones that
that make us feel good. The feel good ones.
But the ones that tell us that we need to be introspective, it's nothing new. This is this new fad. It's not a new fad. God has told us that, because that's how He speaks to us. When we sit down, because we can't hear Him when we're moving. When we running, we can't hear Him clearly.
Correct.
We hear part of what He says, and then the devil is conflating that with us. So when we're thinking, oh, this is where I'm supposed to go, and God's like, I didn't tell you that.
Where you going?
Not
What are you
listening.
doing?
Where you
You're
going?
not listening. You're hearing part of the conversation. You're in a room and somebody's talking to you like, yeah, and you just, and then they're like, oh, but I didn't say, it wasn't a yes or no question, but you said yes or no.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't listen, sorry, right? That's how we are with God. We're too distracted, right? Something else you said about, our societal interactions. So in Africa, the continent of Africa, within the majority of the countries that have not moved to democracy yet, they're still part of the collectivist mindset. Most of the West Indian countries are still collectivist mindsets. United States of America is a competition mindset. So collectivist says, we are a village, we work together,
I was
we
just
come
about to say that
together,
village mindset.
we build a business together,
Right.
and it's okay that you want to branch off, but we're gonna branch off and still be connected. You're not gonna compete against me. You're gonna be me in a different location, and we're all gonna work together. In America, it's, oh, we're working together. Oh, I see what she's doing. Oh, I'm gonna take it from her. I'm gonna go
Right,
start
I'm
my
gonna
own
get
business.
it.
Yeah.
You don't even have the whole manual, but you can start your own business. You
Yeah.
can talk my business, and then that foot in the neck. Right? So then what happens is, so let's talk about West Indian Black women, right? We're coming into that, we're connecting with other Black women, American Black women, and some West Indian Black women who second, third generation. We're connecting and we're like, great, we're creating this wonderful sisterhood and everything, and then there is this one moment of infighting, this one moment of that competitive thing. And it's not just the culture, it's our society. It's the internet, it's everything that we're looking to as a guidepost, right? Except for the good book. Everything you're looking at a guidepost says, oh, let's compete. And you think, oh, great, I can just do this. And then we feel betrayed. And you're like, that's why I don't hang with girls anyways. Let me go hang with the boys,
Right.
chill with the guys,
Sure.
right? And you don't learn anything.
So let me
That's
ask you guys this, and then we're gonna begin to transition into, because we really talked about it, but I want us to focus on the parenting aspect, right? Because everything you guys are saying, getting the kids ready for school and running around, and I didn't know who I was because I was taking care of everybody else. I had to be so many different people in the space because I still had to be a provider, right? Trying to find my voice and not so that I don't lose my job, so I gotta stay within this restriction, right? Is there such a thing as a sisterhood? Do we believe in the sisterhood anymore? Because I think the point you just raised, Jojo, right? In the West Indies, you can see multiple families raised in one neighborhood, right? And it's not competition.
No.
We want all of you to go on and be successful. And if you don't, we want to know who did it, right? Because we know that we did our part. So somebody must have did something. Y'all know us.
Right.
You lent your pencil to somebody. Somebody put a hex. It's something.
Exactly.
It's something. Come on, y'all. So you didn't do something,
Exactly.
right?
You met
You met
the wrong
the wrong somebody. So my question to you all is, why is it that now, that village mentality, I think Michelle Obama preached so much about that when she was in office, the concept of it takes a village to raise a child. Hillary Clinton talked about it takes a village to raise. So clearly there is value in the concept of the village, albeit we don't live by that in the United States, right? So why is it that as a people, we have turned away from the village and have decided, I don't need the sisterhood anymore because I can do this on my own. So my question to you before we begin to dive in, because the sisterhood is going to determine how you parent. The sisterhood is going to determine who you call on when stuff gets rough, when the divorce is kicking in and the husband is acting up, the babies, so forth and so forth. So I really want us to
be honest about it. Do we believe in the sisterhood? Is the sisterhood even still necessary for the Black woman?
Yes.
Go ahead, cause you've been dying over here, and I've been stifling your voice.
Thank you.
Go ahead, baby.
I'm gonna rewind right quick
Go
because I
ahead.
had to talk about that idea of sisterhood and being there for each other because I'm an empath. And I find that I have to protect myself from that because I will stay and listen. You saw how quickly like that hit me. Like I saw myself in the room with this mom and this child who's being raped, and that just like threw my whole world upside down, right? And so I'm just saying, like, I think that sometimes that also has to be considered, that sometimes we make ourselves too available to other people.
Yes.
And in so doing, we kind of create a downtrodden us that we're not protecting. So I just had to say that.
Very valid point.
I'm gonna come back now because I think the first thing that came to my mind is probably gonna come way left, but I feel like we have a society that creates division on purpose.
Yes.
Yes.
And
They
so when
benefit
we
off
talk
of it.
about,
Yes.
so when we talk about like sisterhood, for me immediately I thought about all of the different instances that I know that women are rewarded when they separate from their men. And for me, the same thing could be said for the woman who separates from her friend, right? We seem to believe that there are more benefits in kicking these people out of our circle than having them in our circle. So I feel like that's one of the main reasons why Nadesh has to say that I feel guilty oftentimes, because I have a best friend. I have somebody who I love and I care for. And I'm just like, listen, I'm over here trying to get this done. I'm over here trying to get this done. I'm over here trying to get this done. Like, I'm gonna get to you next week, right?
Right.
And in so doing, I feel like, again, we lose the value of what that was for us to be able to sit, because every time we talk, it's kind of like, yo, why didn't we do this sooner, right? And I just feel like for me, that's been my experience.
Well, in American society, it's easier to get something new than it is to break what's to fix what's broken.
Yes.
And
Say that again, ma'am.
we treat our relationships like appliances.
Disposable.
Right?
Can be removed.
I'll just get another one.
Right.
You know, or oh well, she left.
Next.
Very true.
Next.
Very true.
There's work we're not willing to put in.
Yes.
Yes. We're
And
not willing to do the
because a
work.
lot of that work is internal.
Yes.
Because you want to point a finger over there, you're like, oh wait a minute.
And I had something to do with
Yes.
this.
And owning that is difficult. Because there, like we said, there is no space for self-actualization. Because if that's the case, then you got to realize you may be the bad guy.
And we don't want to
We
do
don't
that.
wanna be
We're
the-
not
no,
having that
And
conversation.
then, you know, we're very G.I. Joe, you know, I'm the
American
hero,
superhero,
and I'm the one
right.
that's right, and I've been wrong. No, you were foul. And that's
Yes.
probably why your relationship went left.
Right.
But we don't want to do that work to acknowledge that. So that's where our sisterhood was going before the Ponderosa. I think Corona has given people an opportunity to reevaluate some things. So that's the shift that we're seeing right now. People have been reevaluating not just their jobs, but their
Everything.
relationships,
Yes.
everything. They're like, okay, how do I want to show up every single day in this world? Because what I was doing before was not working. And it was forced on you. Like, you had to be forced indoors for a whole year with somebody you realized you didn't know.
Or did not like.
Or, in the case of your children, did not like.
Yes.
Because you was willing to ship their little behinds back off to the school with no vaccine and no mask. Well, they gotta go. You know? I think that was one of the weird, like, as someone who's worked in child welfare, who's worked in social services, who's worked in, you know, in the community, I came to the realization really early that people don't like their kids. I already knew that. This Ponderosa has reinforced that it is not just poor people that don't like their kids. Nobody likes their kids. I like their kids. And I'm like, listen, but now you see why the younger folks are like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not having kids. No, I'm not getting married. No, we just gonna travel and have brunch and
Live life.
that's it.
And we're gonna get to that topic. We're definitely gonna get to that topic. Go, Val.
Sisterhood is one of the most important things. Like, I have a group of 5 friends. None of them live here, and it hurts. But when I tell you, like, them girls, if it wasn't for this sisterhood, like, I was homeless in college. My homegirl, she didn't even have a bed. We folded up sheets. She made a pallet, I made a pallet, but she gave me that space. So that sisterhood to this day is one of the most important things to me. But something that I realized, and it's you kind of I'm so bad at keeping my words going. You actually you made me think about it. It's not that we don't care to hear like how are you doing, it's just that we don't have the capacity. And some
we don't make the time.
we just don't have the capacity because we're like
Dealing
ripping
with
and
other
running,
stuff.
ripping and running.
Right.
We're somebody else, and then that leads into not having that time for sexual. Ooh, sorry.
That
Self-actualization and a part of self-actualization. And it could lead to that guilt to where you do, like, sometimes I've done it too, where, like, I've been like, man, how are you doing? And then, like, midway through the, they start telling you, like, they really telling you how they doing. And, like, midway, there's a hamster dancing in my head. And
The hamster dancing. For real, like, you check out. For real.
it's just like, but it's just because but that's just because I didn't want to say to myself, Val, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the mental capacity, you don't have the emotional capacity.
Right.
So honestly,
Your cup is
sometimes
full
it's not that you don't care, but sometimes you just can't ask
can't
that
ask.
question. Like a thing that my friend group does, like my sisterhood, before we even speak, we'll be like, hey, do you have the capacity for this?
Yeah. Yes.
It's huge, and it's made like because there's nothing worse than like sending a text and you're like, I'm just gonna tell my homegirl I need somebody to talk to,
And
then
nobody
then
responds.
no one
Silence.
responds, or it's like 3 days later, oh my God, Val, I didn't see this, and then you're feeling even worse than
Right,
before.
right.
But it's just like, hey y'all, do you have the time or the capacity for
But
this?
wait, I like that, right?
Mhm.
But I also want to point something out. So we're living in a space, in a time,
Mhm.
when social media has really dictated how we communicate.
Yeah.
Because in the past, I can pick up the phone and call my girls, and we can, how we used to call each other, and the person called the other person, and you got 15 people on the call, and we had all the time in the world. But now we have become so detached to one another because of the availability of social media. If Nadej and I are friends on Facebook, I don't need to call to check on Nadej because Nadej posts.
Right.
So I know she good.
Exactly.
Right? Or I'm texting. And we know the danger that comes with texting, right? Because texting is based on how you're feeling, that lands differently. Right? So now, in order to make sure I don't come off sounding angry or crazy, I done add 1,000 emojis that you trying to figure out how I'm feeling. But the reality is that's how we're communicating. So the reason I asked, to further your point, to the sisterhood, notice you said, I didn't see this it's 3 days later, and now you're still in that emotion, even worse, you're feeling abandoned, whereas in the past, you would have picked up the phone,
And called.
had a conversation, and she could have said, Val, I want to do this with you right now, but I can't right now. You would have digested that differently than sitting in that
Wait,
space.
full stop disclaimer, because a lot of them have kids.
So
So it's hard. Like
Understood.
we'll send the text, and then like we do the group FaceTime thing, but nothing's worse than you send that FaceTime and it's just like, Mia, sit down. Deborah, do this.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just like, but
Lord.
no,
Any
just the
conversation.
discipline.
And you can't get anything done.
And then, but I did want to say that, like, it's just we don't have the capacity, and so a lot of times, like Black women, we can't say. It takes vulnerability to say, I want to ask you how you doing, but baby, I'm not doing good either.
But is it okay
No,
for us to say, I'm not doing?
yeah.
To who?
That's the thing. I think we don't get.
Come on, Mo. Mo.
It's
Mo.
not okay to say.
Is it okay for Black women
No.
in any capacity, whether you in the church, you done praised and worshiped and danced and you done got it all on, and now you sitting there in the church, I'm not okay. But the pastor, you can't tell the pastor I'm not okay, because now they start asking questions. Well, sister, you not okay? What? Things ain't good at home? Like, we done drew all types of conclusions.
Yes.
Black women
I can't say
are
I'm
allowed two emotions, okay?
Come on.
It is loud and angry. That's it.
Ooh.
There's no room for disappointment. There's no room for sadness. There's no room for betrayal. There's no room for ecstasy. There's no room for pleasure. We get to be loud and angry, and those two are correlated.
Yep.
We don't get to be three-dimensional people. And that's not just with the outside world. That's with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's with our spouses. That's with our parents. That's with our children.
But that's how
Sometimes.
we're raised.
Of course.
Like I've seen it, and I can say it. My parents, Yolette Pierre, y'all did that.
Yeah.
They did the best that they could
Mhm.
with
What
the
they
tools that they have.
Absolutely.
Right.
But it's right now, like I'm in therapy. And like I've taken those tools back to my parents, and it took them a while to accept it.
Yes.
But so like they will tell you, I am there. I'm okay. I'm fine, child. But they used to always just be like, oh, that's because she's strong. But they never realized that before. I would just say, I'm okay. I'm fine. Because the moment that I'm like, you know, it was a pretty tough day, the first response you get, be strong.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's dismissed anyway, so why
Exactly.
express it?
But I
So
think we also have to take it a step further, that in many of these communities, particularly in the West Indian communities, right? Mental health doesn't exist.
Talk about it. It doesn't.
Right? It's not a
doesn't
term
exist.
we understand.
Black American
Exactly.
community the same.
Right? It's not a term we
We all
understand.
knew this.
Because the minute you say mental health, particularly in the Haitian community,
What
you
talking
crazy.
about? Yeah.
You're crazy. So
You're
we
crazy.
we have gotten to the point where I can't talk about mental health. I can't say I'm having a bad day. Or if you say you're having a bad day and the question is why, I just don't feel right. Like,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
then for
Something
me, what's
else
wrong
is
with
wrong.
something else is wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to go pray.
And
Yeah.
also there's also
Or
yeah,
talk to
go
the
pray.
pastor.
But then there's also the fear that because mental health institutions are so demonized,
Mhm.
Right.
rooms, and you're gonna get beaten up and
Electric
injected with
shocks.
electric shocks and stuff, which is what they were
Mhm.
originally. So even as a family member, even if you suspect that your child has an issue or concern, you don't want to subject them to that. You're like, it's better to just deal with it. We're gonna pray. Maybe it's a demon. Maybe it's something else. Whatever.
Mhm.
Versus me sending you to be institutionalized, and then the shame on the family too, right? So those are also things we have to consider. You commented about the parenting and the conversations. For me, because I didn't have that growing up, it wasn't. It was just exist and do, and don't bother me, right? And like you said, I will put a disclaimer. They did the best with what they had and what they knew, but it was still I've been with kids all day. I don't want to hear anything when I get home. I don't want to be bothered by you.
Right.
Get your homework done, do it, just stay out of my way type of thing. And then, so I felt unwanted for most of my existence. And growing up and I had to, I hid myself in my books, right? I just delved into books. Books were my retreat. And in reading books, that was when I started on my mental health journey. Because in the books I was reading, I know Nancy Drew, and I forget the other author. She used to write romance novels and mystery novels. Can't think of the name now, but within those books, I read about white women who would write in their diaries. And they wrote in their diaries. And I also went to an all-white school, and one of the girls in the school that I attended, she had a diary, and she shared with me, this is what it is, and so forth. So I went out and got me my diary.
That's right.
And that's what I used to write in. But my diary was discovered. And the information in my diary was too real, right? For the reader, and then I was disciplined within inches of life. So then using that as a tool for my own distress became that was traumatic too, right? So there was trauma before it, and then there's trauma pertaining to it.
Right.
And I found myself just at times having to just leave the house, and we lived on a hill where there was like this big forested area, and I would walk far enough away, and I would just scream and just sit in the nature and just scream and cry, and then center myself and get back home. I realized over time, working in social emotional learning, working in conflict resolution, working in these realms, and in the social psycho health realm and so forth, that these are some strategies too that you can use.
Right,
And I didn't know that I was,
Copacetic.
exactly, but didn't know, right? God and reading and whatever else, allowed me. But these things aren't usually discussed in households. So in my household now, with my children, these are conversations we're having. These are things, at the end of the day, since they were small, it's always, hey, so how was your day today? And it's an intentional conversation.
Yeah.
And each one has their moment. And then
Wait, don't go to the kids yet, because that's where we're
Oh,
about
sorry,
to,
sorry,
that's
sorry,
what we're
sorry.
going, that's what we're going to wrap
Sorry,
up,
sorry,
because McKinney's
But
about to give me the look.
But the point about parenting, real quick, the issue with parenting, when you said that parents don't like their kids, the issue is because we don't really understand the requirement and sacrifice that parenting calls for.
Yes.
My mom didn't want more than one. She wanted one, and it was a boy, and she wanted a boy, and two came along, and I came first, and the boy came second. That wasn't something that she planned for or wanted, so it was a challenge for her to do, right? I wouldn't say she didn't love me, but it was a challenge. And a lot of parents, that's what they go through. And when I had my kids before most of my college friends, I was married, having kids, and then they're like, oh my God, and then they had kids, and they're like, oh, I'm like, listen, it is not for the faint of heart.
Nope.
Take your time, relax, and be mindful, because it's a process that you really have to be intentional. And for me, it's these kids were living a wonderful life as angels. Don't pull them into this earth and treat them horribly, because they didn't ask to be here.
Right.
And
Y'all in the kids'
Sorry.
face. Wait, we can't go there. We can't go there.
Yes.
I'm coming.
Yes,
I'm coming.
yes,
That's where we're gonna
yes.
end. You have something to add?
Yes.
Go.
Not about parenting.
No, I know. I'm gonna transition. Go ahead.
Bad. Okay,
Mental
so
health.
yes, exactly. So one, I wanted to say that I suffered from the middle child syndrome. Right? I was the second child.
People don't believe that that's real.
No, it's real.
Especially
It's
in
real.
Black and island communities, they tell you, "Se pasó again." That ain't nothing wrong with you.
My. Pero it's not true.
Pero it's not true.
Because I definitely suffered from that in the sense that I always felt neglected. I always felt like I was overlooked. And I think even more so because my mother remarried. So I was the second child. So I was the baby, right? And I was loved and adored by my father. And then my mother got remarried and I became like a non-factor, right? And so I definitely, as everything you guys are saying, I'm hearing you say walk to a forest and scream, and I remember there being a point where I couldn't go anywhere, but that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I started cutting myself. And I remember feeling so much relief. Like, I just thought that was so strange. Like, you would feel so much relief in that moment. And going through my own mental health journey, going through my own understanding of myself, right? And then accepting of myself. I looked back at that and I laughed because 2 weeks ago, right, my parents are overwhelming me now. Because again, middle child syndrome usually means that you make it out somehow. And I would ask my mom, how come you never checked on me? How come I was never, you never, and she was like, well, we kind of always figured out you'd be fine. Like, everybody figured out you'd be okay, right? And so 2 weeks ago, they're overwhelming me. My parents decided to go on a venture. Of course, not as just their point person. You got to make sure it's handled. You got to make sure whatever. I turned off my phone, right? Turned off my phone, and I got all of the little nasty text messages. Thanks for ignoring us. Thanks for that, whatever. And then the next morning, nice and early, I said, hey, I'm sorry I had to disconnect for a little bit. I needed to gather get my bearings or whatever, so I'd be able to continue. And my mother speaks to me later, and she's like, girl, and again, shout out to mom, because I'm telling you, it's what I appreciated about it. She's like, I kind of Googled that several times and it didn't have any positive connotation. I need to understand, what do you mean by get your bearings? Mommy, I was overwhelmed and I needed some time to myself. That's what that meant. My stepfather said nothing. That was just kind of like, don't nobody give a damn about you. And my mother was just like, oh,
Okay.
yeah,
that sounds about right.
Right? Okay. But I looked to the Nadish would have never done that because she always felt like she was overcompensating. I needed to prove my value. I needed to prove my worth. I needed to prove that I mattered to this point that I was just like, no, I'm good. I need to take a break. Right now. And everything y'all talking about, I promise you, if I were to pass out or something happened to me, y'all would figure this thing out. And so deuces to y'all today. I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow, right? And I just think that's I praise God for that moment.
How to treat you.
Yes. Yes.
Not just your parents.
Not just, but for us, that's a big.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
I remember my mom passed in December of 2020, so it's still very touchy for me. But we had a very tough relationship. She had me at 17. So we kind of grew up as sisters. I think I was about 8 or 9 before I realized that my grandparents weren't my parents. Because we were still in the same house and everybody called grandma mama and everybody called granddaddy daddy. So mom and dad, So that was how we were. And when I became 14 and started, having a boyfriend and all this other stuff, we got into a fight and ended up moving back in with my grandparents. My grandmother had passed at the time. So my mom and I were kind of estranged. It wasn't until I became a mother that we started to form our own relationship. But there were things that I wouldn't tolerate that she may have had to because it was from a different generation. So I had to teach her how to treat me.
Right.
We had to and in turn, she started using some of those same skills to teach other people how to treat her.
Mm.
Because she was open to that, and she recognized, like, look, I don't like this either. You know what? I'm not going. You know, so we are a more educated generation, and not just book knowledge and science and technology, all this other stuff. Psychology, emotionality, being vulnerable, all of these things, and we have that to pass on, not just forward to our children, but backward to our parents if we still have them.
Well said.
You know, we walk through our life every single day teaching people how to treat us.
Yes.
Well said. So while we talk about we're teaching people how to treat us, and I know you guys have been dying to get into the parent piece. We're gonna start wrapping up. I want us understanding what it is that U-Turn does. It's really looking at all of the work, all of the valuable systems that intersect with our children, how those systems contribute to those backstories that our kids live, and whether or not those backstories contribute to the school to prison pipeline and ultimately the gun violence. Moms, Black moms, since we have been corrected that this is Black History. No, this is what Black Women's History Month.
Yes.
We've been corrected.
That's right.
I want us to be very deliberate and intentional about speaking about the role that moms play, Black moms, on both girls and boys, right? And the impact. So when you're not okay, and we've all made reference to it, right? I'm not okay, but I still gotta keep moving. I can't say that I'm not okay. I'm either, what's the two? You're loud or angry, right? Or I have to recreate myself. We don't have time to figure out who we are. What's my hobby? I ain't got no hobby. I never thought about a hobby because I ain't got time for a hobby. We don't have the mental capacity. So when we take everything y'all just told me, how does that translate into these relationships that we have with our children? How do they process this? And in turn, how do they take that out into community? Because that's what we're seeing. We need to realize that children are a product of their environment. And the first environment is the home. So I know that there was some conversation before we started that some people wanted to be parents. Some people happen to be parents. And now you're in the generation of people that don't want kids. They don't want to be parents. They don't want to be in relationships. They don't want to be married. So this whole thing that we were growing up, right? The dream was to do what? We wanted to get married and have kids, correct?
Yep.
And now we're at a point where, hello? I don't want to do neither. I don't care for it. I don't care for this whole family thing. I don't have the capacity for it. What does that mean to our next generation? What does it mean to those of us who currently have children? To those who don't have children, what does that mean? Because if we ain't good, it's hard for somebody to tell me that the family is good. Or am I mistaken?
You're mistaken.
Go ahead.
The family gonna be good regardless. Cause I feel like as moms, we sacrifice and we sacrifice and we sacrifice. And that's the whole goal. Sacrifice to make sure they're good. Where I would say the downfall is the overcompensation and the burden we put on ourselves to not have them live the life that we had. I find myself doing that all the time with the boys. I'm like, oh, you know, to stop it. We're not gonna make them dependent on women. You need to go out and be a man. Do it yourself.
Right.
Not mommy gonna come save you. Oh, you got a boo-boo. Boy, get up. You fine. And keep it moving. And I also find myself with my nieces. Sometimes I'm hard on them, but it's because my mom was hard on me. I'm the oldest, so I don't understand the middle child syndrome, but the oldest, whatever the youngest did, it was our fault. Whatever didn't happen, it was our fault. You get to the point where it's like, okay, I can't win, so let's just see how I can fix it, right? We're the fixers. We're the fixers. So I find myself like with the twins, being hard on them because they're girls, and then I let the boys run, and I'm like, ooh, let's run it back. Let's run it back. I don't want to teach y'all these type of behaviors because that's what you see, like in the youth that we service. You see moms that treat their sons like they're men instead of holding them accountable, and then you see the girls where they're like overwritten with house chores and all these other things with these different gender roles, but no one talks about it.
That's why there's so many black men with podcasts.
Y'all back on the podcast, Y'all back on the podcast, man? Listen.
There's a lot of them.
I'm not gonna start y'all. I'm not gonna start with y'all. Go ahead, Lorraine. I'm not. You know what? The podcast man. Go ahead, dear.
Overall, I could just say that I just take what I've been hearing from everyone, and I've even learned this even for myself, to not go back into how I was raised, to kind of raise my kids, to allow them to have that voice, allow them to stand out and be themselves and embrace and help them embrace who they are as a parent. I, try not to, shelter them too much, but at the same time, you do want to protect them as well,
Right.
so that they can find themselves.
Well said.
It's such a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It is a very fine line. Okay, so you're not ready yet?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Stop.
Oh, well, single woman, the dating pool is very sullied, so I don't know how this is gonna go.
She said it is.
It's dirty.
It's dirty.
It's dry.
It's bad. I shared this last year, but I do want to get married one day and I do want to have children. That's something that I do want. But I'll be very honest and say that I am absolutely petrified.
Good. Yes, no, that's why make sure you take it seriously. Fear is healthy.
I am quite afraid. And then just in the sense of
Don't be petrified.
Girl.
no, because I think now that it's not as pushed out there like you got to be married, you got to have kids. I think it's great for this upcoming generation
Right.
because some of these relationships that I see, but I want a marriage, but I don't want that kind of marriage.
Right.
Now
Say that again.
because something that I've noticed on social media that's been tied into the choice of not getting married is, or now women, because before an insult used to be like, oh, that's why no man wants you, and now it's like, no, baby, I don't want them men.
Right.
But I think it's a beautiful thing. Like I think this push for you don't have to be married to have children. If you want to have a kid on your own, you go down and do whatever measures you want to do. If you want to get married, you get married.
If you do get married, to someone who wants to get married.
Right.
Correct.
And who understand
Yes.
what it means
What
to be
it means
married.
Exactly,
when
because
you find that, it's beautiful.
the last thing I want is like to just kind of push myself or force myself, my siblings, or the kids that I take care of here of this ideology that if you don't have a companion, you're not whole.
Right.
It pushes them into what our moms had to go through or our grandmothers before. Like you're staying not only like some of them were staying because of finances. A lot of them stayed because of safe face.
Right.
And I'll never forget, it was this lady, her husband passed. I was like, are you okay? She was like, baby, I waited for him to die for like 30 years.
Please, this punch. Sitting on that insurance thing.
We don't see how much that has a negative impact on the way these children are raised.
Yes, because
you
they
could-
see it.
You
And
can
kids
have
know. They pick up on that.
they know at a very young
Yeah,
age,
they
and
do.
you could have the most like independently, like as two people in a home, you guys could do the best. Where it's just like I adore how you're raising your children, and I don't know anything about your own, but what I'm saying is like you could have that as like a husband and a wife, like y'all are doing that for your children. But if they're existing in a home where mom and dad or mom and mom, dad and dad, whatever the situation is not getting along, they're still gonna take that impact is probably gonna outweigh that negative.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
Agreed.
yeah.
Anybody else?
So, mom of 2 bonus and 3 men. So I had a social experiment in my household. My 3 kids were basically raised in a non-gendered home. So there was no role for one or the other. Everybody did. Everybody partaked. And this is part of my British upbringing and being around British elites in a sense, the mindset that they embodied and how they dealt with their children. So I think reflecting on life, that's part of my socialization, so that's part of why I think differently. So my kids were also raised where we didn't wear clothes in the house for the most part, right? So they were, again, aware of their roles, their parts, their differences, but that they're still expected to all have this. There's equity, right? There was no imbalance per se. So I think the boys might tell you that I was probably harder on them than the girls in a sense because of my own concerns with them being out in society, going out and having to, because they're not the typical Black boy, they're not ruffians, they're not robust and they're in the arts, they perform in the arts, they play music, they make people happy. That's not who they are. So then they get picked on in school and different settings, and the teachers assume that because you have dreads and you were dark skinned that you're going to be this kid, and they're like, why am I being aggressive? So but I raise them to where they have an understanding of what society can do to you and how to empower, right? Or protect yourself from some of the elements. We speak openly. I don't believe in the shushing of anyone, male or female. Your feelings are valid. Your emotions are valid. Let's have a conversation, because I know how it feels to be smothered and be ignored and be told to just, fix it and get it together. So I allow them to speak, and I was sharing earlier before we started recording the fact that even when I become that loud Black woman, my son corrects me. He's like, let's take it down a little bit. Not necessary. Why are you speaking to me so aggressively? Wow. Let's start again, right? Or are we going to be barbaric? Like I smacked him for something the other day in fun, but somewhat in a disciplinary way. He was like, are we reverting to barbarism? Like, why are you hitting me? We can have a conversation about what we did. There's no need for that, right? So, so yes, it's a part of the way you raise your kids, your socialization, the value system, and it can happen. Like I've done groups with parents and had conversations about the things that I do, and they're literally like, "No, you're giving too much power to the kid."
Wow.
And I'm like, "But they're human beings, and
Right. Say that all the time.
right? We need to
They're
understand,
human beings.
right? And we need to teach them to be attentive to their emotions, because if not, they smother them, and then they have all these other mental health issues. So yeah, that's my piece.
But that goes to I'm sorry.
No,
No, go ahead, finish
But
it
that
off.
goes to intentionality, right? So if you want to be married, then you will position yourself to be able to do so because you're intentional with how you set up your finances. You're intentional about how you deal with your emotional baggage. You're intentional about how you deal with your relationships. Same thing goes for being a parent. You have to be intentional in that too. I was never the kid that dreamt of getting married and having kids and all that. No, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to, listen, that was not my thing. But when I was pregnant with my first son, I met my husband while I was pregnant. We met at DCF in training together. Here I am pregnant, I don't even know it. And this is when we meet. This man was by my side from the beginning. My oldest son is now 20, he'll be 21 this year. Only daddy he knows. But when I was pregnant with him and I found out that I made that intention to say, I'm gonna be the best me that I can be for him. And the father that I choose for him is going to be the best person that's going to be the father for him.
Yes.
I chose someone who valued family, who valued marriage, who valued healthy relationships, who valued healthy boundaries, all of the things that my mom never had a chance to do as a 17-year-old. Her mom never had a chance,
Right.
we are the culmination of the decisions that we make. Right?
Yes, we are.
Our children's futures are based on the decisions that we make, just like ours is based on the decisions that our parents make. Intentionality is such a huge part of that. Talking to your children, making sure that they understand your feelings, their feelings, why it matters. Like I have the conversation with my kids all the time now that they're a little bit older. I said, you never treat anybody outside of this house better than you treat the people inside.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I have to have that conversation with my husband too. Like when we're arguing, he's a kitchen sink fighter, right? Like we're not even talking about that.
Don't you love those? Sorry, that's not what we're talking about, sir.
So but I got okay, all right, okay. And then we'll talk, and I said I never have a problem with what you say. Your feelings are valid.
Mhm.
I acknowledge that. If I did something wrong, if I, whatever, I always have a problem with how you say it.
Correct.
Because you can get me to do anything depending on how you talk to me. Because
Amen.
I love you.
Amen.
But if you come at me sideways, what you're gonna get is not what you want. So we're gonna try this again, and then we'll have a different type of conversation. Because listen, we've been at this for 21 years. He understands. He's getting there.
He getting there, he getting there.
He's getting better.
Okay, that's fair. But see,
But he wants to get better.
exactly.
That's-
That's
that's
the
the
intentionality,
That's
right?
the
And I think a lot of what we're seeing, right, is the fact that our children, because they are products of our environment, of their environment, we have got to decide intentionally what is best for them,
Absolutely.
right? And that begins with how we take care of self, who we allow in our spaces, who we allow to pour into our space. Because part of the conversation that we didn't talk about, right, because McKenna giving me the side eye already, is who do we allow into our spaces, right? Because that's a whole nother conversation which by itself, which is why I asked about the sisterhood.
Yeah.
Because you can have a group of people around you and they may not be the best group for you.
That's true.
And a lot of times it's okay when we outgrow folks,
Yes.
right? But we're trying to hold them on so tight and now they become our detriment, right? So I think when we're talking about our kids and we're talking about how do we pour into them, a lot of what you guys are saying, I'm getting ready to wrap it up, a lot of what you guys are saying is giving voice, right? You're listening to JoJo say, I want them to be able to tell me what's wrong.
Yeah.
And to be able to have a child say to me, so we're resorting to barbarism now, right? Because there are things that he says to me and I'm like, who's your mama again?
Yeah.
Because I have to remind you who your parent is sometimes, right? And I have people that say to me, so my son goes between SP, mom, Cheryl, everything people call me, right? So he'll call me mommy. If we're in public space around work, I'm SP because he knows that that's what the youth in the street call me. Other people call me Cheryl. So, my friends, family, they call me Cheryl. And he'll go through that and some people will say to me, oh, he doesn't call you mom? I said, he goes between them based on how he's feeling. And I answer to all because I answer to other people when they call me that. I never want to restrict him. You must call me mom. It's not what he calls me. It's how he respects me, right? And I think a lot of times we get so hooked on the title, both at work, in the house, and every place else. These titles define us, but it's the relationship. I want to know that. I want you to know that you're wanted, right? I want you to know that just because you're the middle child doesn't mean that you're dismissed, right? Or if you're the only child like my child, I want you to know that they're the same expectations if there were 3 or 4 of y'all, right? And I think a lot of times these are the conversations that we're not having because we assume that the children understand. And because we don't give them space, because we don't give them a voice, because we don't hold them accountable, but more importantly, because they don't see healthy people in healthy relationships, they go out and continue to perpetuate the unhealthy stuff that they see at home. So, as I wrap up, I really want each of you to tell me, or to tell the viewers, right? What is one thing that you would advise a Black woman celebrating Black women
History Month.
History Month? What do you do different? How do we make each other better? And you can take it wherever you want, whether it's collectively, in your family. How do we make each other better? Because if we're gonna celebrate this month and it's about luncheons, it's about getting dressed, it's about tea parties, it's all the stuff, everybody in pink and everybody, and nothing substantial comes out of it that is tangible for the progress of our people, then this too is a waste of time, right? So my takeaway, I really want everybody to be able to one another, right? One is really us supporting one another with these takeaways. What's your takeaway to the women that are here and the women that are watching, whether it's as a mom, it's as a Black woman in a workspace? What's your takeaway, and how do we collectively make each other better? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
had it from the beginning.
Go ahead.
I'm just waiting. So my takeaway is be selfish. Put you first. You can't take care of nobody else if you don't take care of yourself.
So be selfish.
Be selfish.
Yes. That's tough, but yes.
No,
it's
no, it's not tough.
No, it's tough for people to digest
Right.
because we have been taught,
To not.
right, to
Yeah.
not be selfish.
Be
And you're a mom, you chose to be a mom, your child comes
Right,
first.
right,
Your
right.
relationship, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
now we're in this mindset where we're saying, I come 1st. And it's hard sometimes for people to unlearn
Yeah.
Yes.
what has been taught to them their entire life because that's what they've seen done. So that's a good one.
Like Cookie Lion said, I gotta put me first, Lucius.
Go ahead, Nadesh.
So I'm actually going to kind of combine it
Okay.
with two cookies. So the first one is that my takeaway has been solidified by my husband in the sense that it's pretty much patiently teaching people how to treat you, right? I love that. I love that. But I think my husband was the first and still today the only man that I know who had no problem with me being my genuine self, never ever being offended.
Yeah.
If he had something to say, he said it. If he needed to learn, if he needs to learn, he does that. And when it's time for him to apologize, one of the best things he's ever said to me was, Nadish, I apologize for not respecting your autonomy. That resonates with me in a way that I will never be able to fully express. But he solidified that it is completely okay to teach people how to treat you. And do it patiently for those that you care about and that you know care about you. Do it intentionally and with dignity,
Yes.
right?
that
For
part.
those that you don't care about.
Yes.
But to make sure that in all things, in every aspect of your life, you make it a priority to teach people how to treat you. And that would be my takeaway.
Yes, yes. Who's next? Who's going next?
I'll
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this was all just encouraging. But for me, I could say to turn on that inkling for me to begin to speak. Because I know, like, don't look like that. When she invited me here, I was like, okay, great, I'll be here. I'll be like in the back, with the cameras, because that's how I grew up, knowing, how to just be in existence. I was always in the background. I was always behind the scenes, and for me now is to speak out. Like when you said something, you were saying, your time to speak is now. And that's what I'm embracing. I need to just start taking that in. So yeah.
Yes. I like when people have a takeaway. Yeah.
I'm not ready yet.
Joe.
I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. I'm still
You're not ready yet?
She said something, and
Right.
something I was gonna say, I'm thinking.
Thinking, Mo?
I have two things that go together.
Wait, I'm gonna leave y'all two for last. Because y'all two right here. Val.
This one here.
No,
That's what it is.
My takeaway, and I guess the advice I do want to give.
Louder.
My takeaway. What I've taken and what I would like to give back to the Black women watching out there is something that every woman at this table has said, and that is to be intentional. Through you guys speaking, like y'all poured into me, and
Same.
even when I didn't say necessarily what it is that I was feeling,
we got it.
Go ahead, girl.
We got you. That's all right. That's
It's
all right.
okay. It's okay.
See, I put it right in front of you because I knew it was coming.
no, I'm not gonna cry.
Okay.
But if you do, it's okay.
It's
I was
okay.
about to say that.
It's
That's
cleansing.
okay. It is.
I was praying this.
Let it go.
You're
Let it go.
That's something else I need.
Say thank you for
Yeah.
understanding.
Yes.
Don't say sorry. Say thank you for understanding.
Thank you for understanding.
There you
Go
go.
ahead, cry.
I was praying because, and it's crazy how God just works. I was praying because this week, when I say I've just been feeling, and there's things that y'all.
Get your napkin. Get your napkin.
I'm sorry, I'm holding up the wrap up.
Why? We can edit, honey.
You hear me?
We can edit.
One more time. You
deserve it.
You just deserve this
Time.
moment. Yes, you deserve this moment.
Just in life, quick thing is that I come, and I've been thinking about this, like, I'm so afraid to speak because I come from, like, I feel like when I speak, I lose.
Mm.
And you guys, like, just to hear each and every one of y'all talk, and it's like, y'all are so intentional, and it's just inspire me, and that's something that I'm gonna take with me. To be intentional, and not just like in a professional realm, in what I want,
Yes.
and not just like from life, what I want from life. And that's what I want Black women to do, is not to feel like if we say something we're going to lose.
Right. That's
'Cause
powerful.
we're committed.
That's
Like,
powerful.
we're conditioned to feel that way.
Right, right.
But just to say, like, I have been praying, and like y'all came and legitimately spoke to my spirit, and I just want to say, take this as an opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be in this space. Thank you for allowing me to sit at y'all table, because this meant so much. But yeah, for me, my takeaway and what I give back out there is to be intentional. So yeah.
You deserve to
See?
be at the table.
See?
Listen, so hers goes with mine. 2 things. Take up space.
Ooh, that's my thing. Yes. Oh, you know me. That's my thing.
Don't apologize for it.
Yes.
Either they will or they won't.
Right.
Take up space. For anybody here, your emotions are valid, your thoughts are valid, your points, your expertise, your knowledge base, everything that you have to offer is valid. Take up space, sis.
Yes.
Period.
Unapologetic.
And then for those who already are comfortable in taking up space, make room for other women.
Facts.
Yes.
Make room for
Facts.
other Black women specifically to also take up space.
Yes.
We've gotten away from mentoring one another.
Yes.
Because like there is no reason that you should feel like you have no voice.
Right.
Because if that's the case, every Black woman who's ever touched your life before you missed something.
Missed something.
Because
Come
she
on.
should have told you.
Come on.
You had a right to say it.
Yes.
She should have told you that what you had to say mattered. And you should show up in every space knowing that you deserve to be there.
Yes.
And for any woman, Black woman now coming up after us, after this generation of women who to feel like they don't have a voice, we missed something and we gotta go back and grab them and bring them forward.
Yes.
So
That
take
work.
up space and make space for other women.
Well said.
So,
Bring us home, Jojo.
Come on. Bring us home,
because everybody
Jojo.
kind of said everything. Definitely, I am in a place. Even for me, I'm in a place, and this also confirmed for me some things that on my current journey, the fact that I cannot pour from an empty cup. So I have to protect my peace and preserve my bandwidth, right, and my capacity. I have to preserve that. I am also in a place where I am not letting my light hide under a bushel anymore. I'm gonna let my little light shine. But it's not. I'm saying it's only little because that's all I can see. But when you see me, you see the big glow. I can't see the glow because I am the glow. So I will see the little light.
But we
right?
telling you,
just like,
but we letting you know you the
I am the
glow.
glow.
We letting you know you
I am
the glow.
And I finalize that with.
For that.
And finalize that with the fact, because you can't see if you're the light, right? You
Right,
can't see.
right.
You just know that where you're going, there's a light around
But we
you,
gonna
right?
let you know you the glow.
Thank you. But the last part of it goes back to the fact that what is it that we can be? The only things that we're allowed to be?
Loud
Loud
and angry.
So we're not gonna be angry. We're just gonna be intentionally loud.
Yes.
Because we have that voice. They expect us to be loud, but let's use it for the right thing. Let's be intentionally loud, make ourselves known, make our space in the room, let our light shine, and let them understand that the Black women they feared
She here.
should continue
She here.
to fear.
We're
still here.
Coming for everything. Coming for everything.
So yes.
So I think everything you guys said was amazing. And if there is a takeaway that I'm hoping every person watching will take away is the fact that we must celebrate one another. This was about celebrating one another.
Yes.
This was about allowing space for us to be vulnerable, allowing space for us to pour into each other. See, celebrations don't always have to be with the big lights, the gowns, and all the beat face, right? It can simply be me pouring into you. It can simply be me mentoring you. It can simply be me saying, let me sit next to you and allow my shoulder to be your pillow. The problem is we've moved from that. And because we've moved from it, our families have moved from it. And because our families have moved from it, our children have moved from it. And because our families, our children have moved from it, our communities have moved from it. We are the community. So what we're waiting for everybody to do for us is already sitting at this table. And that was proven by everything you guys brought to this table. Everything you brought, every thought, every feeling, every tear, every empathy you felt. Anybody who knows me knows I'm big with the sentiments of empathy over sympathy. And the more we can preach that, the more we can teach that, the more we can reach others with that, it makes it all worthwhile. So I did not want to leave without honoring each and every one of y'all. So I ask that each of you take a flower for what you bring.
Thank you.
For who you are. For what you offer to this space. For what you offer to your family.
It's a real flower.
Yes. It's a real flower. For what you offer to your community and what you offer to your children. Each and every one of you at this table makes up who we are as a people. Each and every one of you at this table, thank you, make us what we are. And it isn't about who just pours into us, it's about who we allow to pour into us. But more importantly, after we all pour into each other, who are we pouring into? So I conclude today honoring each and every woman who may be watching, saying thank you for what you bring, thank you for what you offer, thank you for what you do, but more importantly, thank you for the community you change every day. Not just these 31 days, but every day. And I think the more we can celebrate one another for who we are in our good and our bad, in our vulnerable and in our highs, together we change community. I thank you guys for coming. I thank you all for accepting the invitation. Thank you for being here. Y'all have a good night.